data analysis, I want to talk about that. I think it's an important thing to think about is data analysis and how you're actually going to present data. And I am reminded every time that I look at data that I can't get too sophisticated, and I have to make sure that things are really simple. You could do two ways of data analysis. You could get really, really sophisticated and go on one side that is for a narrow audience, and that's really good. But on the other side, you can get really basic, and then you have a much broader audience by doing that. And I'm always reminded to go basic. Every time that I try to do something that's more sophisticated, it is very difficult to present any of that kind of stuff. Not in the sense that, I don't understand it. It's in the sense of other people don't understand it, and they're not going to be able to get what you're talking about. So right now I'm analyzing some data, and I'm like, maybe it would be interesting to get into like Bayesian analysis and stuff like that. Well, first of all, it's just not that common to see within our literature. So I'm going to have to be fighting an uphill battle when I present something like that, and which is nice and it's interesting, but the problem is you're fighting that uphill battle and you're having to convince other people and talk to other people about what this stuff is. And then you run into challenges of discussing something a lot more complicated. And now I'm going to tell you this. I don't know all of the ins and outs of all of this kind of stuff. I don't spend all my time analyzing, different models and things like that. But it gets, the challenging part is that you kind of most of us will have a moderate understanding of this, right? Like everything, right? We all have moderate understandings of what things are. We sort of get into it, and then we got to pull back, and we have to sort of find the right audience. And so for me, what I've realized, it's just far more easier to keep it simple. And think about ways to make it simple in terms of presentation. So even though that you have access to unlimited amount of data and, a bunch of different variables and all sorts of really interesting things, just go simple. It just saves you so much time and effort in the long run. Part of why we go more complicated is we're trying to impress, right? We're trying to show other people we know these kind of things. And then the second thing is, we're looking for models that fit the situation. And yes, there's models that fit situations a lot better than others. Right, like I'm deeply convinced of that. But the problem is that you have to worry about your audience and how other people are going to think about something. And so you could try to make it more sophisticated, but the end result is that people are not going to be receptive to it. And that's the challenging part of what we actually do, is thinking about how others are going to be receptive to what we're actually doing. And we have to worry about that, right? So yes, you can make it very sophisticated and add all these kind of things, but the bottom line is other people have to read it. And then you have to think about the broader audience of who's actually going to read this thing. And so I struggle always of like, what is the appropriate amount of sophistication to add? And I don't know what that is in terms of the appropriate amount. And sort of both angles work with like very sophisticated craziness kind of stuff. And then, the sort of very narrow audience part of things. And then the other is having this sort of broader audience that a lot of people can sort of be receptive to. And I think it's the sweet spot, right? And that's where it takes some skill to understand how to get to that sweet spot. But my preference is to not use any empirical crazy stuff at all. And whenever I start going into those like more, craziness kind of stuff, right? Empirical stuff, jumping through hoops kind of stuff. It's because I'm sort of grabbing at straws, I guess, is, more along the lines of what it is and not sort of thinking through things. So the best analysis, as far as I'm concerned, I would do away with any sort of regression analysis. I would get away from anything that's sophisticated. But the problem is you can't do that because that's not what is considered kosher to the audience. So then you have to sort of think about, okay, well, how does the audience, how are they receptive? And then you have to think about making it so that they're actually receptive, or thinking through this thing to make it receptive. So there's a balance of sophistication. The less is always better. And it all really truly is. You will see a lot more if you don't have a lot of sophistication. But the problem is that the rest of the world wants some sophistication, but not too much. And you have to sort of think about what that is. All right, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.